Today I want to take a look at ULS correlation IDs and a self-service request model. Let's say you have power users, developers that want to receive a ULS correlation log. They have a correlation ID number. They'd like to get the log from the server. Typically, you open a ticket with the support team and the server admins will go generate that for you and email the results. But what if we made that self-service? What if we allowed power users to request their own correlation ID number? What would that look like? How could we automate this? And the model currently looking at is a SharePoint list with a PowerShell scheduled job behind it. So effectively, the user begins, they have a correlation, right? They receive some correlation ID that they have on their screen. They go ahead to the next step, which would be a SharePoint list where they create a new request and they provide all the different details of where they want that email sent and what the correlation ID number is. And then finally, a PowerShell script will process. It will do the merge SP log file, and also it will do the email with a CSV attachment. So bringing this into an automated format requires a little bit of PowerShell coding, but it is possible. So here we're looking at a SharePoint list named ULS Correlation ID request. We make a new item, and there's a few things we need to fill in. We need to say who this is for, like who's the requester email, and we need to have the correlation ID number. Essentially, can you look up this ID number and send it to that particular email? That's really all that's required. Very simple. What's the correlation number? Who are we sending it to? And then status tracking, this is a default value of new, as a way for the job to only process the new items and then mark them as complete. So we're going to go save that to a SharePoint list. And this is simply a queuing mechanism, a way of tracking the request. This person wants that correlation number. Okay, cool. From the PowerShell viewpoint, there's a little bit of scripting that can help bring this together. And what we're going to look at is a pretty standard server object model where you're adding the snap in for SharePoint. You open up the list and you loop through the items. So we're going to loop through all the items on that list. When we find something that's new, then action is required. As soon as we find the new one, we're going to move it to a processing state as a way of marking it that we're actively working the item. We do generate a new CSV file name. Now this is a date time stamp that's unique, right? So the CSV has a unique file name. And that's important just because it makes it easier to trace, and if there's multiples, they won't overwrite each other. And here is the heart of the matter. This is the core command. This is what actually pulls the ULS log based on the correlation number. So this is a SharePoint command. This is going to need the ULS correlation ID, and this is the core that will generate that attachment. Next, we want to look at our email settings from Central Admin. These are the email server settings from CA that are shared for the whole farm. And then we go ahead and execute a send mail message. The most important part here is the attachment. That is our CSV attachment that we're providing. All the other inputs kind of begin from the central admin tracking standpoint. So that's what it looks like as far as the script. And we finish by marking as complete for a status tracking, right? We want to go ahead and mark things complete. And we'll go ahead and give it a test. And now with our PowerShell script ready, we're going to go ahead and execute the first pass. Let the script warm up. You get the display about merging diagnostic log files. That is from the core command of merge SP log file, which we're having here on line 36. That's the SharePoint command. It does give a progress bar if you're running it interactively. And if it's in Task Scheduler, you would not see this, but for demo, for this video, it's really cool that we get the progress bar that's rolling through, collecting, yep. And there you can see kind of the progress bar moving to the right. It tells you that it's collecting. Yes, yes. And it completed on that side, very good. And with our script completed, we can now come over to email. And we see a new email message. We've got the body, SharePoint ULS Correlation ID with the number that we provided, and we have an attachment with a dynamic file name. That attachment file name is the date timestamp and the ID number of the request. So the SharePoint list had an ID number of 2. And then the rest of it is the year, month, day, and that's a timestamp for the file name. So we end up with a perfectly unique file name based on the ID number as well as the timestamp. Looking into the contents of the file, we can see all the different details that we would expect with ULS. And this is the full correlation detail available that we can now share with end users. So that's how we can automate a correlation ID lookup. Pretty simple. Make a SharePoint list with just a couple fields. And really the essential ones are just 3, right? 3 fields. It's going to be the requester email, the correlation ID, and status. Status tracking allows us to only process things which are marked as new. And then of course the email and correlation ID, or who are we sending it to and which ID do we want to look up. The PowerShell job, very simple, only 52 lines of code. And within that, we're able to open the list, once again, process the items which are marked as new. So this is going to be our marked as new right here. Go ahead and do the correlation ID lookup. This will generate the CSV with the unique file name and then email it out to the customer using the SharePoint Server SMTP settings. So you don't even have to put your settings in here for email. It can read that from central admin. So this is actually inherited on the email settings to look that up automatically. So that's how we can make self-service correlation IDs. Thanks for watching.